There's a race that happens every year on a tiny island in the Irish Sea, a competition so dangerous that most professional racers refuse to compete in it. The Isle of Man TT isn't held on a purpose-built track with gravel runoff areas and safety barriers. It's run on 37.73 miles of public roads, lined with stone walls, houses, lampposts, and trees. Riders reach speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour inches from obstacles that would kill them instantly. Since 1911, 281 people have died competing in or watching this race. That's not a typo. 281 fatalities. And yet, every spring, the world's bravest or most reckless motorcycle racers return to the Isle of Man, knowing full well they might not leave alive. This is the terrifying reality of the Isle of Man TT, the deadliest motorsport event in the world. The story of the Tourist Trophy begins in the early 1900s, when motorcycling was still in its infancy and racing was emerging as a way to prove both machine capability and rider courage. Britain's public roads had become subject to a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit in 1903, making it illegal to test motorcycles at the speeds manufacturers needed to demonstrate their machine's performance. The Auto Cycle Club, later known as the Auto Cycle Union, sought a location where they could organize races free from mainland Britain's restrictive speed laws. The Isle of Man, a self-governing British Crown dependency located in the Irish Sea between England and Ireland, provided the solution. The island's parliament, the Tynwald, agreed to close public roads for racing, creating an opportunity that didn't exist anywhere else in the British Isles. In 1907, the first Tourist Trophy race took place on the St. John's Short Course, a 15-mile circuit that wound through the island's countryside. The event attracted competitors eager to prove their motorcycles' reliability and speed in what was billed as a race for touring motorcycles, rather than pure racing machines. The early races proved popular, but organizers recognized that a longer, more challenging course would better test both riders and machines. In 1911, the race moved to what would become its permanent home, the Schneefell Mountain Course. This 37.73-mile circuit started and finished in the village of Douglas, climbing through countryside, traversing the slopes of Schneefell Mountain at elevations reaching 1,300 feet, then descending back toward the coast through a series of villages and rural sections that would become legendary among racers. The course wound through communities like Ballacrane, Kirkmichael, Ramsey, and Cronkney-Mona, each presenting unique challenges as riders navigated tight corners between stone buildings while local residents watched from their front steps. The mountain section provided the course's most dramatic and dangerous element, with roads clinging to hillsides, where riders faced sweeping bends, with vertical drops on one side and rock faces on the other. Famous corners gained names that would become part of TT lore: Bray Hill, Quarterbridge, Balloch Bridge, the Gooseneck, Craigney Ba, each representing specific challenges that riders needed to master to compete successfully. The variation in elevation created constantly changing conditions, with weather on the mountain section often dramatically different from conditions at sea level, forcing riders to adapt to rain, fog, or wind that could appear suddenly. The course's length meant riders needed extraordinary physical endurance to maintain concentration and precision for the 30 to 40 minutes required to complete a single lap at racing speeds. The public roads that formed the circuit included surfaces that varied from smooth tarmac to rougher sections, where patches and repairs created bumps that could unsettle motorcycles traveling at extreme speeds. Rural sections between villages featured blind crests where riders launched briefly airborne, landing at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour with no margin for error in their landing trajectory. The course designers had created something unprecedented in motorsport, a circuit so long and varied that riders needed weeks of practice to memorize it adequately, unlike purpose-built racing circuits that could be learned in days. The mountain course's character ensured that local knowledge and experience provided significant competitive advantages, explaining why riders who returned year after year often dominated against newcomers with superior equipment but inadequate course familiarity. The decision to establish the mountain course as the TT's permanent home created a legacy that would extend over a century, making these 37.73 miles of public roads the most famous and feared racing circuit in motorcycle history. The mountain course wasn't designed as a racetrack. It was, and remains, a collection of public roads that happen to form a circuit. The roads include everything that makes normal streets dangerous at speed: stone walls lining both sides of narrow sections, houses with their front steps mere inches from the racing line, lampposts positioned where a moment's inattention would mean instant death, trees that have stood for centuries creating obstacles that don't yield or forgive. The course features 219 corners ranging from tight hairpins in village centers to sweeping bends over mountain roads, where riders carry tremendous speed with nothing between them and disaster except skill and luck. The early TT races established the event's character, a test of absolute commitment where riders memorized every corner, every bump, every landmark over 37 miles of varied terrain. Unlike purpose-built racing circuits where barriers and runoff areas provided some margin for error, the mountain course offered no forgiveness. A mistake meant hitting something solid at whatever speed the rider was carrying. The consequences were immediate and often fatal. The motorcycles that competed in early TT races were primitive by modern standards. Single-cylinder engines producing perhaps 10 horsepower, propelled machines with rigid frames, minimal suspension, and brakes that were suggestions rather than commands. Riders wore leather clothing and cloth helmets, facing the mountain course with courage that bordered on madness. Average lap speeds in the 1910s and 20s hovered around 40 to 50 miles per hour, slow by modern standards, but terrifyingly fast on motorcycles, with minimal safety equipment, navigating roads never intended for racing. As motorcycle technology advanced through the 1920s and 30s, lap speeds increased. Manufacturers like Norton, Velocet, AJS, and Rudge developed racing motorcycles specifically for the TT, creating machines with more powerful engines, better handling, and improved reliability. The race became a proving ground where manufacturers demonstrated their engineering prowess and riders established reputations that would define their careers. Winning the TT meant something beyond a trophy. It meant recognition as among the bravest and most skilled racers in the world. The TT's prestige grew through the decades leading to World War II. International competitors arrived from across Europe, and the race attracted enormous crowds who lined the course to watch riders thunder past at speeds that seemed impossible on public roads. The event became central to the Isle of Man's identity and economy, bringing thousands of visitors to the small island each year and generating revenue that sustained local businesses. But the TT's growing popularity couldn't mask its deadly nature. Riders died with grim regularity, victims of mechanical failures, riding errors, or simply the unforgiving character of a course that punished mistakes with death. Stone walls that protected fields from livestock became death traps for riders who slid offline. Telegraph poles positioned at roadside became obstacles that ended lives in milliseconds. The racing community accepted these deaths as tragic but inevitable consequences of competing in the world's most dangerous race. Houses stood mere feet from the racing line in village sections, their solid masonry walls offering no give when motorcycles struck them at speeds that turned riders and machines into debris scattered across residential streets. Trees that had grown along the roadside for generations became lethal hazards, their trunks positioned exactly where a rider running wide in a corner would impact them with devastating force. Curbs and gutters that posed no danger to normal road users became launch ramps when struck at racing speeds, sending motorcycles and riders tumbling violently before striking whatever obstacles lay beyond. The narrow width of many sections meant that riders who lost control had almost no recovery space, with the margin between the racing line and solid obstacles sometimes measured in inches rather than feet. Mechanical failures that would result in harmless retirements on modern racing circuits became death sentences on the mountain course, where a seized engine or failed brake could send a rider into stone walls at undiminished speed. Oil leaks from competitors' machines created invisible hazards on the road surface, causing following riders to lose traction without warning in corners, where any loss of control meant certain collision with roadside obstacles. The weather's unpredictability meant riders sometimes encountered rain, fog, or strong winds without warning, reducing visibility or traction precisely when they were committed to corners at speeds that required perfect conditions to navigate safely. Spectators stood dangerously close to the racing line in many sections, protected only by low walls or fences that would do nothing to stop an out-of-control motorcycle from entering the crowd. The course's length meant that medical response times to accidents in remote sections could stretch to many minutes, leaving injured riders without professional care during critical moments when immediate treatment might have saved lives. Families of deceased riders faced the awful reality that their loved ones had died competing in an event that organizers and the racing community acknowledged was extraordinarily dangerous, but chose to continue anyway. The racing press reported fatalities with somber regularity, dedicating pages to obituaries and tributes, while simultaneously promoting upcoming races on the same course that had just claimed another life. Insurance companies recognized the TT's exceptional danger, either refusing to provide coverage for competitors or charging premiums so high that many riders competed without adequate insurance, leaving families financially devastated alongside their grief. The accumulating death toll created growing unease within the broader motorcycle racing community, with some competitors and officials beginning to question whether any race was worth the human cost the TT extracted year after year. Investigations into fatal accidents typically identified immediate causes, mechanical failures, rider errors, adverse conditions, but rarely addressed the fundamental problem that racing motorcycles at extreme speeds on public roads, with solid obstacles lining the course, made deaths statistically inevitable. The racing community's acceptance of these deaths reflected the era's different attitudes toward risk and personal responsibility, where competitors were assumed to understand the dangers and accept them as the price of competing at the highest level of their sport. The post-World War II era brought technological revolution to motorcycle racing. More powerful engines, sophisticated suspension systems, improved tires, and better brakes transformed racing motorcycles from the relatively simple machines of the pre-war years into purpose-built racing weapons. The TT evolved with these technological advances, with lap speeds climbing steadily through the 1950s and 60s as riders pushed harder and machines became more capable. This was the TT's golden era, when legends were made and the race achieved mythical status among motorcycle enthusiasts worldwide. Riders like Jeff Duke, Mike Halewood, and Giacomo Agostini became household names through TT victories that demonstrated superhuman skill and courage. The race was a cornerstone of the Grand Prix Motorcycle Racing World Championship, with points earned at the TT counting toward the championship standings. The world's fastest riders came to the Isle of Man because competing there was essential to championship success. Mike Halewood exemplified the TT's golden age. The British rider won 14 TT races between 1961 and 1979, establishing a record of dominance that showcased both his exceptional talent and his willingness to master the mountain course's demands. Halewood's victories came on a variety of motorcycles, demonstrating that rider skill mattered as much as machine performance, on a course where intimate knowledge of every corner and surface change made the difference between victory and disaster. The lap speeds during this era climbed toward and then exceeded 100 miles per hour average, a benchmark that seemed impossible on public roads lined with stone walls and telegraph poles. Riders memorized the course so thoroughly they could navigate it in poor visibility or rain, trusting muscle memory and instinct when visual references disappeared. The commitment required to race the TT at championship speeds defied rational risk assessment. Riders accepted that death was a possible outcome and raced anyway. But the TT's prestige began to crack during the 1970s as the motorcycle racing world confronted the event's death toll. The Grand Prix racing community grew increasingly uncomfortable with including the TT in the World Championship calendar. Purpose-built racing circuits with modern safety features, gravel traps, tire barriers, medical facilities positioned around the track represented the future of motorcycle racing. The TT's public roads and stone walls represented the past, a past that killed riders with disturbing regularity. In 1976, the World Championship calendar dropped the Isle of Man TT. The official reason cited logistics and scheduling, but the underlying concern was safety. The Grand Prix racing world was moving toward professional circuits, where safety could be managed and improved. The TT refused to change its character, and the racing establishment decided that character was too dangerous to support. The decision could have killed the TT. Without World Championship status, the race lost its position as an essential competition for top riders. But something remarkable happened. The TT survived and even thrived outside the World Championship structure. The event's unique character, the very danger that made it unacceptable to the Grand Prix establishment, became its attraction. Riders who chose to compete at the TT did so because they wanted to test themselves against the mountain course, not because championship points required it. This transformation created a new kind of TT competitor, specialists who dedicated themselves to mastering the mountain course and returning year after year to compete in an event they knew could kill them. Joey Dunlop became the embodiment of this new era. The Northern Irish rider won his first TT in 1977 and would go on to win 26 TT races over a career spanning 3 decades, more than any other rider in history. Dunlop's approach to the TT reflected a deep respect for the mountain course's dangers, combined with an unwavering commitment to mastering every aspect of the circuit through countless practice laps and meticulous preparation. He rode with a smoothness that conserved both motorcycle and tires over the punishing 37.73-mile lap, understanding that aggression needed to be tempered with mechanical sympathy to survive the race distance. Dunlop's dedication to the TT was so complete that he became synonymous with the event itself, with fans making annual pilgrimages to the Isle of Man, specifically to watch him compete on roads he knew better than perhaps any rider in history. His victories came on a variety of motorcycles from different manufacturers, demonstrating that his success stemmed from intimate course knowledge and exceptional riding skill, rather than simply having the fastest machine. The Northern Irish rider's humble demeanor and genuine love for road racing endeared him to fans who saw in him a purity of purpose. He raced because he loved racing, not for money or fame or championship points. Dunlop's career coincided with the TT's transformation from a world championship event to an independent race, and his continued commitment to the event helped legitimize the TT during years when its future seemed uncertain. He developed a reputation for exceptional wet weather riding, demonstrating uncanny ability to maintain speed on rain-soaked roads, where other competitors slowed dramatically out of fear of the reduced traction. Dunlop's training regimen involved riding the mountain course during practice weeks until he could navigate it from memory, his muscle memory so thoroughly programmed that he could ride in poor visibility by feel and instinct. His mechanical knowledge allowed him to work closely with his team to set up motorcycles specifically for the mountain course's unique demands, optimizing suspension, gearing, and chassis geometry for the circuit's particular characteristics. The rivalry between Dunlop and other TT specialists like Steve Hyslop created legendary battles that drew fans back to the event year after year, watching riders push each other to faster and faster lap times. Dunlop's longevity in TT competition, winning races across 3 decades from the 1970s through the 2000s, demonstrated remarkable consistency and adaptation as motorcycle technology evolved dramatically during his career. He became a father figure to younger riders learning the mountain course, sharing knowledge and advice that helped newcomers survive and eventually compete at the sharp end of results. Dunlop's commitment extended beyond the TT to other road races in Ireland and around the world, making him a road racing specialist in an era when most top riders focused exclusively on short-circuit racing. His record of 26 TT victories still stands as the benchmark against which all subsequent TT competitors measure themselves, a number that seems almost impossible to achieve, given the combination of skill, dedication, and survival required to win repeatedly on the world's most dangerous circuit. The tragedy of Dunlop's death in a racing accident in Estonia in 2000, though not at the TT, reinforced the brutal reality that even the greatest road racers couldn't escape the inherent dangers of the sport they loved. Dunlop's dominance of the TT came from absolute mastery of the mountain course. He knew every corner, every bump, every place where the racing line changed, with weather conditions or tire wear. His riding style combined smoothness with aggression, conserving the motorcycle while maintaining speeds that kept competitors behind. Dunlop became a folk hero in Ireland, and among TT fans worldwide, a rider whose commitment to the race transcended rational explanation. But the TT's dangers caught even legends. Joey Dunlop died in a racing accident in Estonia in 2000, not at the TT but competing in another road race. His brother Robert Dunlop, also a TT winner, died racing in Ireland in 2008. The Dunlop family's tragedy, both brothers killed racing motorcycles on public roads, illustrated the brutal reality that skill and experience couldn't guarantee survival in road racing's most dangerous events. The modern TT continues the traditions and dangers established over a century ago. The mountain course remains unchanged in its fundamental character. The same stone walls, the same villages, the same mountain roads that tested riders in 1911 still test riders today. But the motorcycles have evolved into machines that would seem like science fiction to early TT competitors. Modern superbikes produce 200 horsepower from engines displacing around 61 cubic inches, delivering performance that allows riders to exceed 200 miles per hour on sections of the course where stone walls and houses line both sides of the road. Peter Hickman set the current lap record in 2018, averaging 136.358 miles per hour around the 37.73-mile mountain course. Think about that number for a moment. 136 miles per hour, average speed over a course that includes tight hairpins in village centers, sections where the road barely exceeds single-lane width, and corners where the slightest mistake means hitting something solid at tremendous speed. Hickman's record lap required carrying speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour on the fast sections to compensate for the slower village sections. Maintaining that speed while navigating roads never designed for such velocities, the death toll continues accumulating. 281 fatalities since 1911 breaks down to 259 riders, 17 sidecar passengers, 1 marshal, 1 official, and 3 spectators. These aren't just statistics. Each number represents a person who came to the Isle of Man to race or watch racing and didn't leave alive. The deaths continue in the modern era, despite advances in safety equipment, medical support, and motorcycle technology. Riders died in 2022. They died in 2023. They will likely die in future TT races because the fundamental character of the event, racing on public roads at extraordinary speeds, creates risks that can't be eliminated. The racing community debates the TT's ethics constantly. Critics argue that an event with such a death toll has no place in modern motorsport, that the racing world has a responsibility to protect competitors from unnecessary danger. Defenders counter that TT riders choose to compete with full knowledge of the risks, that banning the event would eliminate a unique test of rider courage and skill, and that the racing world shouldn't eliminate danger entirely because managing risk is central to what makes racing meaningful. The debate intensifies every time a fatal accident occurs, with calls for the TT's cancellation appearing in media coverage alongside tributes to the deceased rider, creating uncomfortable juxtaposition between mourning and justification. Safety advocates point to modern MotoGP racing and World Superbike Championships as evidence that world-class motorcycle competition can exist on purpose-built circuits with extensive safety infrastructure, making the TT's public road format seem anachronistic and unnecessarily lethal. Defenders respond that comparing the TT to circuit racing misses the point entirely, arguing that the mountain course represents a fundamentally different challenge that tests rider abilities in ways that sanitized modern racetracks cannot replicate. Medical professionals who work at the TT describe the unique challenges of providing emergency care on a 37-mile circuit, where access to accident scenes can take precious minutes, and transporting critically injured riders to hospitals requires carefully coordinated helicopter or ambulance response. Some former competitors who've retired from TT racing speak publicly about their belief that the event should be discontinued, their firsthand experience with the course's dangers leading them to conclude that no race is worth the lives it claims. Other retired racers take the opposite position, arguing passionately that the TT represents the purest form of motorcycle racing, and that attempts to ban it reflect a society that has become too risk-averse and unwilling to accept that some pursuits are inherently dangerous but valuable nonetheless. The families of deceased riders present conflicting perspectives, with some campaigning for improved safety measures or even cancellation of the event, while others honor their lost loved ones by supporting the TT's continuation because they believe that's what the deceased would have wanted. Regulatory bodies face difficult decisions about whether to implement safety improvements that might reduce fatalities, but would fundamentally change the TT's character, such as adding protective barriers in dangerous sections or restricting speeds through particularly hazardous areas. The philosophical question of informed consent lies at the heart of the debate. Do riders truly understand the statistical likelihood of death or serious injury when they choose to compete? Or does the TT's legendary status and culture of bravado prevent honest assessment of risk? Critics point out that young riders drawn to the TT by its prestige and the allure of testing themselves on the famous course may lack the maturity and experience to make genuinely informed decisions about accepting such extreme risks. The economic argument complicates the ethics further, as acknowledging that the Isle of Man's economy depends significantly on TT-related tourism creates uncomfortable questions about whether financial considerations should factor into decisions about continuing an event with such a death toll. Comparisons to other dangerous sports like base jumping or big wave surfing don't fully satisfy either side of the debate, as those activities involve individual choice without the organized event structure and spectator presence that characterize the TT. The racing world's internal divisions on the TT question reflect broader cultural disagreements about individual freedom versus collective responsibility, about whether society should allow people to accept extreme risks or whether preventing preventable deaths justifies restricting dangerous activities even when participants consent. International motorcycle racing federations maintain complicated relationships with the TT, not officially sanctioning it as part of World Championship Series, but also not actively opposing it, creating an ambiguous status that allows the event to continue while keeping it at arm's length from mainstream professional racing. The debate shows no signs of resolution, with passionate advocates on both sides holding positions rooted in fundamentally different values about what matters more: preserving individual freedom to accept risk or preventing deaths that safety improvements could theoretically prevent. The Isle of Man itself faces complex questions about the TT's role in the island's culture and economy. The race attracts over 40,000 visitors to an island with a permanent population of around 85,000, generating revenue that sustains businesses and provides employment. The TT defines the island's international identity. Most people who've heard of the Isle of Man know about it because of the TT, but that identity comes with a death toll that accumulates year after year, raising questions about whether tourism revenue justifies supporting an event where people die regularly. The riders themselves provide the most compelling defense of the TT. Interviews with competitors reveal a clear-eyed understanding of the risks combined with a belief that the challenge justifies those risks. TT riders aren't delusional about danger. They know the statistics, they know riders who've died. They've likely attended funerals of fellow competitors. But they return to the mountain course because they believe that testing themselves against the world's most dangerous race gives their lives meaning that safer pursuits can't provide. John McGuinness, 23-time TT winner and one of the modern era's most successful competitors, has spoken about the TT's attraction. He describes the mountain course as the ultimate test, a place where racers confront their own mortality and discover what they're capable of when consequences are absolute. McGuinness acknowledges the deaths, acknowledges the danger, but argues that removing all risk from racing would eliminate what makes the TT special: the knowledge that every corner, every lap, every race could be the one where luck runs out. The veteran racer describes the feeling of completing a fast lap on the mountain course as incomparable to any other achievement in motorsport, a rush that comes from pushing to the absolute limit on a circuit that offers no forgiveness for errors. McGuinness has attended funerals of fellow competitors who died at the TT, experiences that force him to confront the reality that he could be next. Yet he returns to the island year after year because he believes the challenge gives his life meaning that safer pursuits cannot provide. His perspective represents the mindset of TT specialists who've dedicated their careers to mastering the mountain course. They understand the risks better than anyone, they've lost friends to those risks, and they continue racing anyway because they've chosen to value the pursuit of excellence on the world's most dangerous circuit above the pursuit of safety and longevity. The TT's legacy is inseparable from its death toll. The race can't be celebrated without acknowledging that 281 people have died competing in or watching it. The riders who've won there achieved something extraordinary, but that achievement came at a cost measured in lives lost. The event's status as the world's most dangerous race isn't metaphorical or exaggerated. It's simple facts supported by over a century of fatality. Modern safety improvements have made marginal differences: better helmets, advanced riding gear with built-in armor, improved medical response. All of these reduce the likelihood that crashes will be fatal, but they can't eliminate the fundamental problem that racing motorcycles at 200 miles per hour on roads lined with stone walls is inherently deadly. The TT will continue killing riders as long as it continues existing in its current form, because the danger that makes it unacceptable to modern motorsport is exactly what makes it the TT. The terrifying reality of the Isle of Man TT is that everyone involved, riders, organizers, fans, knows people will die and chooses to participate anyway. The riders accept death as a possible outcome of their choice to compete. The organizers accept that their event will likely kill people, but believe the TT's cultural and economic importance justifies continuing. The fans accept that watching the TT means potentially witnessing fatal crashes, but attend because the danger is part of the event's attraction. This creates an almost cult-like atmosphere around the TT, where the danger isn't something to be eliminated, but something to be embraced as central to the event's identity. The race attracts people who are drawn to extremes, who want to test themselves or watch others test themselves in ways that mainstream society considers unacceptably dangerous. The TT exists outside normal risk calculation, in a space where death is acknowledged and accepted rather than prevented. The legacy of the Isle of Man TT will be debated as long as the race continues. Is it a celebration of human courage and the ultimate test of rider skill? Or is it an anachronism that kills people for entertainment and should have been banned decades ago? The answer probably depends on whether you value individual freedom to accept risk above society's responsibility to prevent unnecessary death, or vice versa. What's undeniable is that the TT has created legends. Joey Dunlop's 26 victories, Mike Halewood's 14 wins, John McGuinness's 23 triumphs, Peter Hickman's record-setting lap. These achievements required skill, courage, and commitment that transcend normal racing. The riders who conquered the mountain course did something extraordinary, proving themselves against a challenge that most racers refuse to even attempt. But that legacy exists alongside 281 names on memorial lists. 281 people who died competing in or watching a motorcycle race. Every TT victory celebrates rider skill while simultaneously reminding us that other riders died trying to achieve what the winner accomplished. The race's history is written in both triumph and tragedy, glory and grief, legend and loss. The Isle of Man TT will likely continue as long as riders are willing to risk death for glory, and the island is willing to host an event with such a deadly legacy. The race has survived world wars, economic depressions, and exclusion from the World Championship calendar. It has endured because it offers something that can't be found anywhere else, a test of absolute commitment, where the stakes are life and death and the rewards are legend and immortality. Have you ever watched the Isle of Man TT, either in person on that tiny island, or through videos that capture the insane speeds and impossible risks? Does the race's danger make it more meaningful or simply unacceptable? The TT forces us to confront difficult questions about risk, freedom, and what we're willing to accept in pursuit of glory. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd genuinely like to know where you stand on the terrifying reality of the world's deadliest race. And if this story made you think, subscribe for more explorations of the machines, races, and riders that push the absolute limits of what's possible on two wheels.